yeah. So I got some mail, and I already got this one. My gauges. What you'll notice is these are pretty much the cheapest gauges on eBay, but they work. And I got them because I wanted something with lights. So these guys seem to have, yeah, like some pretty cool looking LEDs. They are really cheap and I'm not too bothered, but I didn't want to go spending, you know, $1,000 on autometer gauges or anything like that. So, cheap stuff it is, but cheap stuff will still work absolutely fine. So these are just really cheap. They're not even named on eBay, but they have Dragon Gauge written on the inside, and that's the same with all of these. And they are very cheap. Alright, final one. Oh yeah, I said oil pressure. And it does come with a little, a new little oil pressure unit. Again, that's already got one. I might just use the one that comes in the car. See. So there we have it. They look like this. Lights light up and the lights are pretty cool. I will show you in a bit. I am waiting for two more gauges. Boost, water temp, tacho. Oh yeah, sorry. Boost, water temp, tacho, and oil pressure. The last two that are on the way is the fuel level, which is another little round one like that, but it's got like little bars of lights that run up and down, and it is rated to the same ohm reading that comes on the VY fuel pump, which I think is 40 ohm at empty and 250 ohm at full, or opposite. I think it's the other way around. But regardless, I researched it, and it is I researched it, and it is the right one that I need. So it should be just a simple matter of powering it up and installing it. And then I did buy a tachometer, a GPS tachometer. So when that gets here, I'll test that out as well. So pretty much when they do arrive, I will be taking my board out of there, drawing all over it, trying to put some placement on that for my gauges to kind of make them look, you know, half okay. We'll work out the placement when the rest arrive. But yeah, I love packages in the mail. It's awesome. Alright, finally, well, it's actually still not the final gauge, but it's the main one. It's my speedometer. GPS speedometer has arrived. So, pretty stoked. Let me take this out of the box real quick. Alright, there we have it. It is an 85mm speedo with the odometer clock at the bottom. I'm not 100% sure how many functions this odometer has, but yeah, looking forward to putting this in the car. So this one also has the indicator left and right. It has the high beam indicator as well, so I'm going to be able to wire up a few things to this. This is the GPS module that you put somewhere, ideally facing the sky. I'm thinking about having it kind of popping out of the dash, underneath that dash there, right in the center. And if not in the center, then I don't know, maybe off to the side here somewhere, but it's just going to be a little teeny tiny black box. I don't think it's going to look too ugly, but if that's facing the sky, you're going to get very good GPS signal, and it should give me a relatively accurate speedo. Plug with a bunch of wires that do things. I'll have to read the instructions. There is a switch. Again, I don't know what for. It would be, I guess, to control the functions on the actual unit itself. It's probably just a single button. Push a few times, do a few things. Oh, there was a switch there as well. Okay, don't know what I'm talking about. pretty happy. Got my gauges. We'll work out the positioning of these on the board. The only one I'm still missing is my fuel one, but I'll make it work as far as measuring this up. I'll just pretend this is a fuel one, because it is the same brand and it's going to be the same style as this. So I'm going to start by mocking up where I want these on this panel. Actually, before I start mocking that up, I might work out how to mount this panel into the back of my dash first. That way I know it's going to fit, and I won't do all this other work for no reason. So let's do that now. Alrighty, so we are going to try and make this board fit in here. That's pretty much it. It's going to make this board fit in here. There's a couple of little screw panels that are already on the dash. There's one there, there's one in this corner, and there's one on this facing panel here. I'm going to try and use them because that would just make perfect sense. There's one on the side as well, which I think is going to be the best one to use. Alright, now that I've got my little screw holes marked out on the panel, it's time to work out where I'm going to put gauges. So I'm going to put this down. I'm not going to talk you through it because it's individual with everyone who does something like this, so I'm just going to record it and put it in fast forward and you can watch it. So there you can see my wonderful mess of adjusting where I want my gauges to go. I need to go buy some hole saws because I don't have any. Very good. We now have a painted dashboard thing, and it's got this cool like effect to it that's kind of like plasticky but not. I was considering doing like a carbon fiber over the top, but there's nothing else on the car that's carbon fiber, so I thought it might look a bit off. But I'm actually happy with the way that turned out as a gauge cluster back panel piece. I think it's going to look sick. So I'm going to put the gauges in and just give it a mock-up on the car, just to make sure that the gauges fit behind the back of the console. And then it's going to be the fun part of wiring, which I'm not looking forward to. I'm not going to go into too much depth with wiring all these gauges because there's 10 million videos on YouTube that already show how to do each individual gauge. So I'm just going to leave those videos on YouTube already to explain how to do it. I'm just going to do it, and I might just speed the footage up for you guys, but I'm just happy I got it. I'm going to install it, and fingers crossed by the end of this video we get some lights happening. We can actually see the dash lit up, would be great. Alright, and ta-da! That is my gauge cluster. This one is left empty because I don't have my fuel gauge yet. I'm hoping it arrives today. It would be great because I can just stick it in there. But my tacho, RPM, speedo, water temp, oil pressure, and turbo, as in boost gauge. I left this one over to the left because it's got a black surround on it, and I thought I'll keep all the silver ones together. I don't know what color surround bezel the fuel reader is going to have on it, so if it is chrome, I'm going to swap them around. But that's looking pretty cool. I'm liking it. It's nice and simple. Very simple. But I kind of offset this a little bit. I was going to have them all in line as well. But I thought, you know what? If I kind of make them all line up on the bottom and just have the larger ones sitting on top and they're a bit lower, I think it looks a little bit more stylish. I could be totally wrong, but whatever. Anyways, I'm going to go mount this in the car and see how it looks. So there it is in place in the dash. She fits well, which is really good. I hate having that hole there. It sucks. So the only thing that I can see that's going to be an issue is the angle that it's on. The dash on this panel is very, it's on a big angle basically. I'm just wondering if there's any way I can kind of, I don't care if I have to rebuild this board. I got friggin' 10 foot of it over there. But I'm wondering if I can maybe tilt this so it's on a massive angle like this, if I can bring it out so that the gauges kind of face me more instead of, you can see they're on that angle kind of facing down, and rather than be straight. So I'll have a bit of a think about changing that. But in the meantime, I'm actually happy with how this is going to end up looking. So that's good. I'm happy with that. These are going to get, I'm going to get black screws to hold the actual dash panel in when it's finished. But for now, that's just, they're there. But they look sick. They look really, really cool. I like that kind of chrome surround on them. The steering wheel is not going to stay the way it is, by the way. This is just here, so I've got a steering wheel on the car. And while I'm wiring these up, I think I might actually remove this steering wheel just so I have access to all my wiring. So apart from that, I think the next step is, I would say, I don't want to wire them up yet, because that angle is going to annoy me. So I'll see if I can sort that out. Alright, so it's time for a rebuild. I worked out what I'm going to do. So I'm not going to hold it. Okay, so the height of this goes to this little line here on the dash. So it fills from there to there. And that line is further back, so it gives the panel a forward-facing angle, which kind of sucks. I'm going to extend the panel by 4.5 centimeters down to rest on this bar here, which I may lose my vent here, and I did say I wanted to keep it, but whatever. I will have to move my dimmer switch because I want to keep that, and it'll also rest on this ledge here. So that's basically 4.5 centimeters of extra length, but what that's going to allow me to do is bring the front facing panel, which is like this at the moment, and have it far more facing the driver, because right now it's like this and it's kind of annoying, so I want it a bit more front facing, and that should give me what I need. I'm going to go from there. Also the panel at the top rested kind of forward. If the panel at the top can rest further back, that's also going to twist the angle of the panel backwards for me to face the driver more. So I'm going to get onto that, chop up a board. I'll have to just make an area here for the steering wheel arch, and we'll see if that fits. So as I was working on my gauge cluster, Mr. Postie arrived and dropped something off for me. It is, yes, my fuel level indicator. Sweet. Let's work out a way of mounting this into the dash, because it's a little bit different to a typical gauge. It doesn't have like those brackets on it. I'll go grab it. Alright, so lucky for me, the hole that I drilled is snug like real nice and snug. So that is literally just gonna stay in there. I can't even twist it, that's good. Stay in there like so. Look at that. Look at that, we are complete. So I kept the little black one. One thing I did change as well. My boost gauge was over here because it was black, and I got bored and I decided to spray it with some silver paint. Now it is very similarly coloured to the rest of the chrome one, so that's going to stay there. I also wanted my boost gauge kind of next to my tacho and speedo, so I can kind of not look all over the dash to try and figure out what is going on with the vehicle. So boost gauge, speedometer, tacho, water temp, oil pressure, and finally my fuel level. And that's, I'm really happy that that just sits in there flush. It's a little bit smaller actually, the outer bezel, than the rest of them. So it's just a tiny bit smaller there, but I don't mind at all, so I'm happy with that. So let's go test fit this. I did extend the bottom with some screws to cover stuff, so let's go put it in and see how she looks. I'm really happy that that just arrived, because yeah, I needed it. It was the final piece of the dash puzzle. Ugh. Oh yeah, by the way, I put carpet over the back of my boot. Over the back of my boot, over the parcel trays. So yeah, it was blue vinyl, and you know, that's all good and proper. But now I've got black carpet because the blue vinyl just didn't quite suit. There still is blue vinyl under there. If I lift up this with my trusty little bivouac, you can still see the blue vinyl. I might actually cover that in vinyl as well, just for shits. Oh, I just dropped it. But basically, yeah, the carpet is all cut out to fit the edges, and also the carpet covered those little tiny gaps that were there. Cheating. So that's a heck of a lot neater. Anyway, there's that update. Let's go back to the dash. Anyways, yeah, I'm going to start pulling this apart, trying to get the clusters wired up, and hopefully next time I see you guys, we'll be able to light them up. No promises, but we'll see. Just halfway through my kind of wiring, tightening up challenge is, I just figured out that I can't actually use the dimmer switch because these gauges, they have the signal wire, they have a negative wire, and they only have one power wire. They don't have power to battery and then a separate light cable. So it's all done through this red cable. So I can't actually have the lights turned off on the gauges and actually have the gauges running at the same time. So basically, whenever there's power to the gauges, the lights will be on. So for at least these 4, I won't be able, these 5, I won't be able to individually control the dimming. On this one I can, because it's got a wire that I chose for a red backlight, and then it's got a 12-volt power supply. But given the fact that I can't control all of these gauges with my dimmer switch, I'm not even going to bother hooking this up to the dimmer switch. I think it's just going to be skipped, and I'm just going to run all the gauges. The lights will be on during the day regardless. So a little bit disappointing for myself. I kind of wanted the dim switch option after I just installed it, but it's there in case maybe later I figure something else out, or if later on I buy some better quality gauges that have that function, that have that option of a separate lighting cable like this one here. But regardless, I'm going to continue cleaning this up a little bit and try and get it in the car. Okay, so just a quick tip if when wiring up the fuel gauge. Okay, it's all well and good that everyone knows, well, that if you're doing it, you'll figure out positive, your negative, and then a sensor wire. Now the sensor wire runs to your fuel sender, which is obvious, and then you go, well, I should get a reading, yeehaw, and all that kind of stuff. Now make sure that your fuel sender and your fuel gauge is the same ohm range. So when my tank is full of fuel, it's 40 ohms. When it's empty, it's 250 ohms. So that fuel gauge reads correctly. Now, one thing that's been doing my head in is the sensor line wasn't picking up a reading. I've got my positive and my negative for the fuel pump, and then I've got these 2 fuel sender lines. Now what I figured out after a long time of stuffing around was that So there's a positive and negative for the fuel pump, but then you've got these two fuel sender lines. I didn't have the fuel sender earthed. One of these two plugs at the back here is actually an earth wire. Now when it's not earthed, that fuel level doesn't show anything, no readings whatsoever. And it was absolutely doing my brain in. So I linked an earth cable to the negative on the pump, and as soon as I plug it into this here, you'll notice up the front that it will start to read. So I'm just going to plug it in right now. Whoop. Okay, so she's in. Oh, is it on? There we go, it's in. And you can see it's starting to read, and it's slowly building up the level of the fuel finally. So that's just a quick tip. There's a lot of other things I've been learning while doing this gauges and stuff, but what a pain in the butt. So that is now reading my fuel properly. Now there is a little tiny adjustment on here, so I can actually fine tune my fuel level. So basically when I fill my tank to full, what I'll need to do is adjust this so that it reads full. Pretty much all this does is make those lights go up and down, just as an adjustment, so you have an accurate gauge. But anyway, just while we're here, I'll show you these, them all lit up, turbo, tacho, and these three gauges. They're looking good. Well, I'm going to persist and continue doing this. I got a mess to clean up. Everything's wide, everything's sorted out. I know where it goes. It's just a matter of tidying it all up and going in. But this is why I didn't want to go through wiring in my video. Like, what a... as if you guys want to see that. This is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Anyways, be back. What a job. But it is pretty much done. And there it is. My dash. So, what have I done here? What have I done? Yes, okay, I can't keep up. I've done so much. I had to extend this plate down over the whole dash so that it would fit properly. And I did that by making some little brackets that fold back underneath the dash piece. So there's a bracket there, there's a bracket there, and they self-tap screw into the chassis piece. This dash is a bit tacky still, so I don't really want to touch it. All my wiring is a lot cleaner than what it was. I spent a lot of time trying to organise that. All of my gauge clusters are wired up and they're all labelled. You can see all my tape under there. So they are labelled. If I need to pull them apart again, I'll know what's what. So pretty much, let's turn the key. And there we have lights. Getting the fuel sender to read correctly was a pain in my butt, but we got there. Oil pressure works, water temp works, tacho works, the speedometer does work, but the car's not driving right now, so it's not going to work. Because it is a GPS module, and I put the little tiny receiver just up on the dash. The boost gauge works, so a lot of wiring and hooking up and the guiding lines through the chassis and stuff, it was a pain. So I'm just going to give it a quick start just to show that, just to see how everything looks really. Hopefully it starts. She starts. So, one thing I did forget was to plug in the thermo switch. Something I forgot to do earlier. So yeah, engine's running. That's a positive. Come down here. Boost gauge works. obviously it only displays boost under boost. It's not going to show negative pressure because I took the T-piece off the actuator hose. So there's no negative pressure at all running through that particular sender. My oil pressure gauge is going nuts because I haven't wired it up properly, and the wire contact is literally just sitting on the oil pressure gauge. So that's a bit dodge, but it is, when it starts up and it's cold, it sits at 80 psi, which is great. Water temp is self-explanatory there. It's water temp. RPM, when we give it some gas, does its RPM-y job, and that's pretty much it. I'm pretty happy with it. Gloss black top panel. Oh, what I am going to do, actually, this bottom section that I added on, I'm going to cover that in the same material here, so this Alcantara stuff, so that it kind of ties in with the black gloss center panel and the Alcantara down the bottom. It'll follow through to black gloss up top and Alcantara down the bottom, same with here. That's a hectic job, but I'm pretty happy with how that looks. How that looks now. My nice dusty windshield. There's my GPS unit. So everything is working now, as far as gauges are concerned and all that fun stuff. Man, it is super windy outside today. Jeez. The boot does what the boot does. And again, there's all the clusters from the front. So yeah, that's about it. That was a day and a half of hard work. I'm stoked. Have no idea what I'm going to do next. Maybe do the sound deadening in the car and put some carpet in it. That'd be a good idea, actually. But anyways, there you have it. Tacho's in, gauges are in. I'm happy.